to achieve that. You mentioned the budget, and I have to focus on the budget because I'm deeply concerned about the budget put forward by the administration, the signals in terms of lack of understanding of agriculture. I've always said to have an economy and have a middle class, you've got to make things and grow things. It's clear the president has focused on making things, which I appreciate in Michigan, but not growing things, which is equally important. And so when we look at a 21% cut in the budget, it's extremely concerning to me and to so many of us that care about small towns. And in fact, I grew up in one of those small towns in northern Michigan. So I'd like to just go through a series of questions quickly, just in terms of, and get your just yes or no on whether or not you would support those things. Do you think that small communities should have the same access to clean water as large cities?
Of course.
Yeah. Do you think it's important for individuals in small towns who live far away from a health center or a hospital to have access to telemedicine services?
Like you, Senator, as a product of a small community, I absolutely do.
Do you think it's important that farmers have access to the latest research and tools to make their farms more productive?
Certainly.
And do you think rural small businesses should have access to capital to keep them competitive and grow their business?
Certainly.
Do you believe organic farmers have a place in the farm economy?
I think consumers across the country have demonstrated that. I'm sorry, Senator Leahy had to leave.
Yes. And do you think it's important to feed seniors and children in need of assistance?
Yes, ma'am.
I indicate all of this because these are some of the cuts. These are some of the areas that have been zeroed out, like rural water and sewer, or have taken severe cuts in the budget, which are deeply concerning. And so if you just, in the final moment here, if you could tell me first if you had any input in this process of the budget, and secondly, how do you move forward when we are looking at these cuts? How would you, as Secretary of Agriculture, address this to be able to meet the needs of rural America?
Sure. I think you're probably aware, Senator, without confirmation and not being confirmed, I've had no input into the budget. Obviously, I think you probably saw it before I did. Also having some concern. Obviously, as a member of the administration, I view this budget similar to what as governor when I get a revenue estimate that I didn't like as well. I didn't like it, but we managed to it. And my goal, I think you indicated the words in your opening statement, that you want a secretary who can be a strong advocate and a tenacious advocate. If I'm confirmed, I want to get under the boards and get some room and work for agricultural producers and consumers to let this administration and any of the people that are making those decisions in that budget area know what's important to America. I think the president understands that many of his votes came from the areas that you're mentioning and referred to. And I hope in the context of a balanced or a budget that meets the objectives that we can get agricultural share there. These are important programs. I recognize that. And I will do everything within my power, within the confines of the administration working there to match what our desires are. I flippantly say sometimes I grew a $20 billion budget in Georgia to $16 billion during that 2003 to 2011 period of time. Not necessarily voluntary, but with the dedicated work of the civil workforce in Georgia who really worked hard in those areas, we did do more with less. Some of that has to do with efficiency and effectiveness, which I look forward to engaging this USDA federal workforce in and inspiring them that we can do more. Obviously, it takes some money in many of these areas, and I promise to you I'll be a strong and tenacious advocate for that.
Well, thank you. And let me just stress again, agriculture has been doing more with less. That was our charge, and we met it in the last Farm Bill. But the cuts we're talking about here will be really devastating for farmers in small towns.
Sure.
Thank you.
Speaking of the budget, Senator Bozeman, you'll be recognized next. But first, we would like to hear from the chairman of the distinguished Senate Appropriations Committee and the former chairman of this committee, and would remind everyone of that, saying that everybody knows that the President proposes and the Congress disposes.
Thank you. My last issue is funding and budgets. I was very concerned about the President's budget and how it would take away access to water systems. We have so many unmet sewer needs in New York State. Our rural water systems are in desperate need of investment. Similarly, we have desperate need of investment for rural broadband. It's really important that we can get high-speed internet to all our rural areas. Our farmers depend upon it. Our small businesses depend upon it. And the USDA Rural Utility Service Program is really important. So I'd like your commitment that you will continue to work with this committee, which has bipartisan support for those investments.
Certainly, I'm hopeful, obviously, that the President's proposal over infrastructure will be recognized, that the agricultural broadband issue, if we're going to keep kids on the farm in rural areas, if our rural areas are going to be able to thrive and survive like cities do with the density, we've got to have the connectivity. It's just as important really now as sewer or water, clean water or other things, is the connectivity to the world.
Yep.
And that's what we're advocating, will advocate, continue to advocate. I know members of the USDA have already been meeting with the White House infrastructure team over that, and we will certainly promote that to the best of our ability.
Thank you.